You know that feeling you get when you pick up an old tool? That satisfying heft, that feeling that it was built to last forever? Well, I'm here to tell you that's not just you being nostalgic. There's a real, measurable reason your tools just aren't what they used to be. I mean, think about your grandpa's old Craftsman ratchet. That thing was a legend, right? Forged from chrome vanadium steel, and it came with a lifetime warranty that was actually, for life. You could bust it, walk into any Sears, and they'd hand you a brand new one, no questions asked. It was the definition of buy it for life. But fast forward to today, and yeah, it's a totally different story. That US factory closed. That legendary warranty, now you've got to mail in your broken tool and pay $7 for the privilege. But here's the real kicker. Independent tests show the new ratchets are a full 8% weaker. It's not just in your head, they're literally making them worse. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why on earth would a company famous for quality start deliberately making their products worse? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look beyond the toolbox and into the boardroom. Okay, so you walk into Home Depot or Lowe's, you see this whole wall of tools, dozens of brands, all competing for your money. It really feels like you've got a ton of options, right? Well, that feeling of choice, it's mostly just an illusion. The crazy part is that just two massive corporations control about 65% of the entire power tool market in North America. You've got Stanley Black & Decker, which owns DeWalt, Craftsman, and a bunch of others. And then you have Tektronic Industries, or TTI, which owns Milwaukee and Ryobi. So you might think you're choosing between a yellow tool and a red one, but a lot of the time, your money's just going to one of two giant companies. So how did we get here, where the brand on the box is more important than what's inside? The story of DeWalt is the perfect case study. Back in the 90s, professionals wouldn't go near Black & Decker. So what did the company do? They literally took their existing pro-grade tools, slapped a coat of yellow paint on them, and revived the old DeWalt name. And guess what? It worked like a charm. They went from nothing to capturing nearly half the pro market. It was a masterclass in marketing, not engineering. But a clever paint job doesn't explain why the tools themselves are getting weaker. For that, you gotta follow the money. And when you do, you find this one giant anchor that's weighing everything down. And it all boils down to one simple four-letter word: debt. See, these companies didn't get huge by inventing the next great tool. They got huge by buying out all their competitors. And they did it with borrowed money. A lot of it. It really kicked off with the massive $4.5 billion merger of Stanley and Black & Decker. And they didn't stop there. They kept on buying, adding more and more to that mountain of debt. In 2016, they dropped almost $2 billion to scoop up Irwin and Lennox. By 2023, that shopping spree added up to a mind-blowing $7 billion in debt. Think about that. When your company is saddled with $7 billion of debt, you're not sitting around thinking, how can we make a tool that lasts for 30 years? No, you're thinking, how are we going to make our next interest payment? But it doesn't have to be this way. Just look at the difference here when you compare them to a company like Makita. Stanley Black & Decker is drowning in debt. Makita, they have basically none. And they're sitting on over $1.5 billion in cash. This isn't just two different ways of doing business. It's two completely different philosophies. One is about financial gains. The other is about building things to last. So you've got this massive debt you have to pay off. You need a reliable source of cash. And these companies figured out a brilliant and kind of devious way to get it. It's not about selling you one drill anymore. It's about trapping you in their system. It's all about the batteries. Every single brand has its own proprietary battery platform, and none of them work with each other. And trust me, that's not an accident, it's a strategy. One investment firm even called it a recurring higher margin revenue stream. Basically, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're acting like a tech company, locking you into their ecosystem so you have to keep buying from them. And being locked in like this has real costs for everyone. If you're a pro, switching brands could cost you $4,000 or $5,000 in new tools. It creates this mountain of toxic e-waste. Less than 20% of these batteries ever get recycled. And if you try to save a buck with a third-party battery, well, that avoids your warranty, and even worse, it could bypass the safety features that keep the tool from, catching fire. So are we just stuck in this cycle of debt and disposable tools? Is this just how it is now? Absolutely not. There is a much better way to do things, a different blueprint that's built on a foundation of quality. Just look at some of the big German tool companies like Hilti and Bosch. They're actually owned by family trusts or charitable foundations. This structure makes it almost impossible for them to be bought out and loaded up with debt. And look at their R&D spending. They pour way more money back into designing better tools because they're not just trying to make Wall Street happy this quarter. They're playing the long game. And that difference in philosophy has huge real-world consequences. Get this. Back in 1999, a physicist invented a truly revolutionary piece of safety tech. It could stop a spinning table saw blade the very instant it touched human skin. A complete game changer. He took it to every single major US tool company, and every single one said no. And here's the infuriating reason why. It had nothing to do with the technology itself. It was about liability. A Black & Decker exec basically admitted that if just one of them licensed this amazing safety feature, it would set a new standard, and then they'd all get sued if their soles didn't have it. It was a cold, calculated business decision that put their bottom line ahead of people's fingers. See, these aren't just abstract numbers on a balance sheet. That constant pressure to cut costs, to pay off debt, it eventually trickles all the way down to the tools themselves, sometimes with very real and very dangerous results. Take this to Walt Miter's saw. To save a few cents per unit, they switched to Key's safety guard from metal to plastic. Shockingly, the plastic guards started breaking. This led to a recall of over 1 million saws after hundreds of failures and 9 serious injuries. And what did they use for the replacement part? An 1/8-inch thick piece of steel. They knew exactly what the right material was from the start. They just chose to be cheap. And that wasn't just a one-time screw-up. The numbers don't lie. Over the same 10-year period, Stanley Black & Decker recalled 60, that's 60 times more products than Makita. You think that's a coincidence? Or is it the predictable result of a business model that prioritizes debt over durability? And this goes way beyond your garage workshop. These are the tools that build our homes, our offices, our entire infrastructure. And here's a really startling statistic. While overall US labor productivity has more than doubled since the 1970s, construction productivity has actually gone down by 30%. You really have to wonder, how much of that is because the very tools people use are just less reliable than they used to be? So that leaves us with a pretty unsettling question. If the tools are designed to fail, if they're the product of a financial system that's all about short-term gains instead of long-term quality, what does that say about the things they build? The problem isn't just in your toolbox anymore. It's a rot that's spreading through the very foundations of the world we're building.